The year was 1979, a time when the nights in that place felt darker than anywhere else on Earth. I still remember the smell of metal and dust that hung in the air, the silence that settled after the workers left, and the strange feeling that we, the night guards, were not the only ones walking those grounds after midnight. The company was built far away from the city, surrounded by open land and broken fences. No sound of traffic, no voices, only the endless hum of insects and the distant call of stray dogs. It was the kind of place where, after midnight, even the wind sounded like a whisper from something alive. There were 20 of us guards, divided across shifts. We were supposed to patrol every corner inside the warehouses, around the tall boundary walls, and near the empty quarters where no one lived anymore. But truth be told, not a single one of us ever dared to go everywhere. There were places everyone avoided, spots where the air felt heavier, colder, wrong. Even the bravest guards, men who fought in the army or worked in dangerous posts before, refused to go near them. We called them the silent zones. No one could explain what happened there. Sometimes, we'd hear footsteps walking on gravel, though no one was around. Sometimes a light would flicker inside a locked storehouse. And sometimes, when we passed by a certain part of the boundary wall, we'd feel eyes on us watching even when we were alone. Those who stayed too long in the silent zones never lasted in the job. Some said they saw shadows moving against the wall. Some heard a woman crying, and one man even claimed he saw a child sitting on the ground, looking straight at him before vanishing. People started quitting, one after another. The company's management called it superstition. They laughed about it, saying, "You guards watch too many horror films." But when one of their own supervisors went missing for an hour and came back pale and trembling, unable to speak even, they stopped making jokes. Still, the factory ran, and we kept working because we needed the money. But I can tell you now, there are places where money is not worth the night. One evening, before our night shift, the sky turned a strange shade of orange, like it was on fire. Behind the clouds, a storm was coming, but the air felt too still, too quiet for rain. I remember feeling something in my stomach that told me that night wouldn't be normal. When we gathered for duty, the senior guard told us that one of the outer watch points near the tree line hadn't been checked properly for days. The cameras didn't work there, and the patrol lights kept going out. He ordered one of the new recruits to check it, a boy named Rahim, quiet and serious, maybe 22 or 23. We warned him, told him that it was better to stay close to the rest of us, but he only smiled and said, "Ghosts don't scare me." He took his torchlight and rifle and walked off toward that dark patch of trees, the same area where others had reported strange things. The rest of us stood near the main gate, smoking and talking. At first, we could see the light of Rahim's torch bouncing through the distance, but after a while, it stopped moving. He was standing still. We shouted at him, asking if everything was fine. No answer. Then, very faintly, through the still air, we heard something that froze the breath in our chests. A woman's voice, soft, gentle, calling, "Come here, come down." The voice came from the trees, the same direction where Rahim had gone. We saw his torchlight turn upward, as if he was pointing it toward the branches, and then the light began to shake violently, up, down, left, right, like his hand was trembling. One of the guards whispered, "What the hell is he seeing?" And then the light dropped to the ground. We ran, all of us. Our boots hit the dirt, our hearts pounding louder than the wind. By the time we reached the tree line, the air felt freezing. The smell of wet earth and something rotten filled our lungs. Rahim was lying on the ground, unconscious, his face pale as chalk. The torch was beside him, still glowing weakly. His pulse was faint but steady. We tried waking him. He didn't move. His lips were trembling, as if whispering something in his sleep. And then, we looked up. The beam of the torch had landed on the trees, and there, for a fraction of a second, I saw it. A woman's shape, thin, motionless, her two legs bent backward, and each foot resting on a separate branch. Her long hair hung down like a curtain, and her head slowly turned toward us. We froze. None of us screamed. None of us moved. Because she wasn't standing, she was perched, like something inhuman. And then, she smiled. a slow, unnatural stretch of lips, and a voice that crawled into our bones. "Come closer." The next second, a gust of wind hit us so hard we could barely keep our eyes open. When we looked again, she was gone. We carried Raheem back to the quarters, half running, half dragging him. When he finally woke up, he didn't speak for hours. When he did, all he said was, "She told me to come closer. She was waiting for me." The next morning, he quit the job. No goodbyes, no explanation, just left. But the fear didn't leave with him, because every night after that, when the wind blew from the tree line, we could still hear that voice whispering in the dark, "Come closer." After Raheem quit, things only got worse. The compound seemed to grow darker each passing night, not just in light, but in presence. The air had changed. It felt heavier, like it carried something invisible, something waiting. Even the dogs that used to wander the perimeter stopped coming near. They would bark from a distance and never cross the gate. We started avoiding the outer trees completely. No one mentioned the woman again, but her shadow lived quietly in our minds. Every time the wind blew, every time a branch creaked, someone would look over their shoulder. None of us said it aloud, but we all felt it. She was still there. A few weeks later, new kinds of disturbances began. This time inside the company. It started small, a metal box falling on its own, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, and the sound of doors slamming when there was no wind. But then came the nights when the warehouse shook as if something heavy was banging from inside, and no one dared to check. Then one night, the noise became unbearable. It was around 2:45 a.m., the dead hour, when the factory seemed to breathe on its own. The main building lights flickered twice, and we heard the sound of something being dragged. Thump, scrape, thump, scrape. The noise came from the old storage hall, a long-abandoned part of the factory. Everyone froze. Our radios crackled. Nothing but static. The senior officer looked around nervously and said, "We can't ignore this. If management finds out we heard it and didn't check, we'll lose our jobs." So 3 of us were sent to inspect me. A tall guard named Jalal, and another called Babu. Jalal was a former bodybuilder, strong as an ox, and always boasting that ghosts were for weak minds. The rest stayed behind, pretending to be busy, their eyes avoiding ours. They knew we were walking into something bad. The corridor leading to the storage hall was long, narrow, and smelled like damp iron. Our flashlights sliced through the darkness, catching only swirls of dust in the air. The sound was louder now, clang, 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 like someone was beating a metal pipe on the walls. Babu whispered, "Who's doing that at this hour?" Jalal grinned, "Maybe your ghost friend's having fun." I didn't laugh. My hands were trembling, but I hid it. There was something wrong with the sound. It wasn't echoing normally, it felt close, like it was following us. We reached the hall gate. It was locked with a heavy chain. Jalal banged on it twice. "Hello, anyone inside?" No reply, only a deep, cold silence. Then suddenly, the chain rattled on its own. Babu stumbled back. I saw it too, the iron links twisting as if invisible fingers were sliding through them. Jalal cursed under his breath and stepped forward. Enough of this nonsense. He unhooked the lock and pulled the door open. It swung wide with a moaning creak. Inside, complete darkness. Our lights barely reached the far corners. But something smelled wrong. A mix of oil, rust, and something rotten like decaying meat. We stepped in slowly. The sound had stopped. Only the drip of water from a pipe echoed in the silence. Then Jalal said something that froze my blood. "Do you hear that?" I listened. There was a sound, faint, like someone breathing. We pointed our torches toward the far end. Nothing, just old machines and shadows. But the breathing grew louder. Then it turned into laughter, low, wet, and distorted, like someone laughing through water. Jalal tightened his grip on the torch and said, "Who's there? Show yourself." No answer. The laughter got louder. It bounced off the walls, coming from everywhere at once. Then all at once something hit him. A loud smack echoed across the hall. Jalal's head snapped sideways. He staggered, dropped his torch, and collapsed to the floor. Blood sprayed across the concrete from his nose, his mouth. He wasn't moving. There was no one there. No wind, No visible attacker, but something unseen had just slapped him with monstrous force. Babu screamed and dropped his flashlight. I froze, unable to move. My skin burned cold. Every hair on my body stood up. Then came the sound of laughter again, this time sharp, closer, circling us. High-pitched voices, multiple, giggling like children in the dark. He he he, he he, and then whispering, words we couldn't understand. The sound crawled up from the floor, from the walls, from the air itself. I grabbed Jalal's arm. His body was limp, cold. Babu and I half dragged, half carried him out of that hall, slipping on the floor in panic. As we ran down the corridor, the laughter followed us. Not with footsteps. No, it floated. It felt like something invisible was right behind our necks, whispering, enjoying the fear. When we finally burst out into the open courtyard, the laughter stopped. Just stopped. The night went still again. We laid Jalal on the ground. His face was swollen red where the invisible slap had landed. His eyes were open, terrified, staring at nothing. It took several minutes before he blinked. When he did, his lips moved slowly, and he whispered one thing that chilled me to the core. There was something in the dark. It smiled at me before it hit. That was the last shift he ever worked. And from that night on, none of us went near that part of the compound again. Even the bravest guards refused. The company never shut down the building officially, but no one was assigned there anymore. It just existed, silent, abandoned, breathing quietly through the night. And sometimes, when the wind blew past the metal shutters, it almost sounded like laughter again. Hey, come closer. After that night, the night Jalal was struck by something no one could see, everything changed. The factory was never the same again. Days went by, but the air inside the compound felt poison, thick, stale, and charged with something unnatural. The workers whispered while they worked. The managers ignored it, pretending nothing had happened. But those of us who guarded the nights, we knew better. We had felt it, heard it, smelled it. That place was no longer ours. It belonged to something else. For the next few nights, I didn't sleep properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that sound again, the dry, sharp smack that sent Jalal to the floor, and the laughter that followed, echoing endlessly in my head. Jalal himself had changed. The once confident, muscular man now looked hollow. His eyes were always wide open, as if he was afraid to blink. He refused to come near the storage building again. He said he could still feel a handprint on his cheek. It had turned dark, not like a bruise, but like something burned into his skin. He said sometimes, at night, when he looked in the mirror, he could see a shadow hand resting on his shoulder. He quit after 2 days. He didn't even collect his final pay. By then, half the guards were gone. Some called in sick. Some vanished. Management started bringing in new men to replace them, but none stayed long. I remember one night, around 3:10 a.m., hearing voices from inside the old warehouse. Low, distorted voices. But the hall had been sealed off since Jalal's incident. I told the others, but no one wanted to go check. Finally, one of the senior guards, Abdul Karim, said, "If we keep running away, we'll all lose this job. Let's see what's inside. We'll go together." I didn't want to. Every part of me screamed to stay away. But I followed. We were 5 that night. The moon was full, but the sky was thick with fog, a heavy white mist that swallowed the factory grounds whole. The lights flickered above us like dying fireflies. As we walked toward the warehouse, the wind picked up cold, whistling through the rusted pipes. It sounded like a woman humming. When we reached the warehouse gate, the chain that had once been locked tight was open. The padlock lay broken on the ground. No one said a word. Kareem turned on his flashlight and pushed the door open. The smell that came out made my stomach twist like something dead had been rotting there for years. We stepped inside, one by one. The floor was littered with metal scraps, oil cans, and old parts. The air was thick, unmoving. We could hear the sound of water dripping somewhere in the distance. Plip, plip, plip. Then, the humming started again. It came from above. We all pointed our flashlights upward, and that's when we saw it. A figure hanging upside down from the ceiling beam. It was a woman. Her hair was tangled, her face pale, her mouth stretched open in an unnatural grin. Her eyes were wide and black, and she was laughing silently, though her mouth didn't move. Her 2 legs were bent backward, like before, unnaturally jointed, like an insect. One of the guards screamed, and the sound broke whatever stillness held the place. The woman's head snapped toward us, like her neck cracked sideways in one violent jerk. And then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed us whole. Someone started crying. Someone else whispered prayers under their breath. The air turned colder, freezing cold. I could see my own breath in the dark. Then came the footsteps. Slow, wet, dragging, coming closer. One of the guards, maybe Kareem, shouted, "Who's there?" And then, he was pulled backward. I heard his body hit the floor, then a scream. Short and sharp, then nothing. Our flashlights flickered back on for a moment, and I saw him. Kareem was lying flat on the ground, his face frozen in terror. His eyes open but glassy, staring upward. His neck was twisted, completely turned around. He was dead. The others screamed. Someone dropped their rifle. The sound of metal echoed like thunder in the dark. Then we heard it. The laughter again. Louder this time. Not one voice. Not 2. Dozens. A chorus of laughter. All around us. Closing in. High-pitched. Broken. Overlapping like hundreds of unseen mouths giggling from the shadows. We ran. I don't remember the door. I don't remember how we made it out. I just remember running through the fog, tripping over cables and barrels, until we reached the main gate and collapsed. When we looked back, the warehouse door was swinging open slowly, back and forth, creaking like it was being pushed by invisible hands. And there, in the pale moonlight, we saw a woman's silhouette standing in the doorway, her hair floating, her face covered in darkness. She lifted one arm and pointed straight at us. Then, in a voice that didn't sound human, she whispered, "You shouldn't have come back." The door slammed shut. The next morning, the factory officials found Kareem's body. They said he fell, but we knew. Everyone knew. No one showed up for work after that night. The entire shift resigned. The management tried to hire new people, but every guard who joined left within days. Now, the factory stands empty, its gates rusted, its walls blackened with mold. And those who live nearby say that, on certain nights, when the fog rolls in thick and heavy, you can still see a dim light flickering inside the warehouse. And if you stand too close, you'll hear it again, the laughter, and a woman's voice whispering through the dark, "Come closer." After Kareem's death, the factory became a place of whispers. Even during daylight, there was a feeling that the walls were listening, that something alive was hiding beneath the concrete, waiting for the dark to fall again. The management tried to silence the news. They sent police, then engineers, then electricians, anyone they could find to fix the problem, but no one lasted long enough to find anything. Some quit after a single night. Others never showed up again. The official report said Kareem died of an accident. But we knew better. Those of us who survived, the ones who saw her, didn't talk about it openly, because even speaking her name seemed to bring something near. We called her "She from the Ceiling." A week passed after the incident. Most of the guards had left. I was one of the last few still there, not because I was brave, but because I had nowhere else to go. I needed the job, but deep inside, I knew the place was cursed. The remaining men slept in a small quarters near the main gate. Nights were long and sleepless. We could hear things moving beyond the walls, footsteps in the gravel, dragging chains, soft murmurs that stopped whenever we tried to listen closely. Sometimes, we'd find handprints on the inside of the glass windows, small, pale handprints, as if someone pressed from outside. But there were no footprints nearby. The dogs never came close anymore. They just stood at a distance, growling at the air. One night, when the fog was so thick, it looked like milk pouring over the ground, something happened that made me leave that place forever. It was a Friday night, near 3:30 a.m. The kind of night when even the crickets are silent. There were only 4 of us left on duty: me, Babu, Farid, and the new supervisor, Mr. Anwar. He was a proud man, skeptical of everything, and he didn't believe in ghosts. He said all our fears were nonsense stories made by cowards. That night, strange noises began again, but louder than before. Metal clanging, footsteps, and a woman sobbing, echoing through the storage wing. Anwar slammed his teacup down. "Enough. I'll see what's there myself," he barked, grabbing a flashlight. Babu looked terrified. "Sir, please. Not alone." "Then come with me if you're scared," Anwar said coldly. Reluctantly, we followed. The fog was so dense, we could barely see 5 feet ahead. The factory lights flickered above us like dying stars. Each step echoed like it was being repeated by someone invisible walking beside us. When we reached the main building, we found something that shouldn't have been possible. The old warehouse door was open again. The same door that had been sealed, chained, and padlocked after Kareem's death. The lock lay on the ground twisted, mangled like soft metal. Anwar frowned. "Someone's inside. Probably thieves." But I knew it wasn't thieves. The air inside that building felt wrong. Too still, too cold. He walked in first. We followed. Inside, everything was in ruins. The air reeked of rot, and something burnt. Our flashlights flickered, but never went out completely. The silence was so thick that even our breathing sounded loud. Then, faintly, from somewhere deep inside, we heard it. Crying. A woman's voice, soft and broken, as if she'd been weeping for hours. Anwar's expression changed. He raised his light toward the far corner. "Who's there?" No answer. The crying stopped. Then came the laughter, not sudden. It began softly, like a chuckle. Then it grew, rising, echoing, filling every inch of the hall. Babu dropped his torch. The beam rolled across the floor, landing on something. A shadow, a woman's shape crawling on the floor. Her hands were jointed backward, her fingers long and sharp, her knees bending the wrong way as she moved closer to the light. Her hair dragged on the floor, matted and wet, leaving streaks behind like black oil. We stood frozen, unable to move. Then she looked up, her face pale as death, lips torn into a grotesque smile. Her eyes were hollow, black pits that seemed to swallow the light. And when she spoke, her voice came from everywhere. "You came back again." The lights went out. All at once, chaos erupted. I could hear screams, Farad shouting, Babu crying, Anwar cursing, and above it all, the sound of footsteps running on the ceiling. Fast, crawling, circling us. Something brushed past me, cold, colder than ice. I swung my flashlight wildly, but it only caught glimpses of figures scuttling across the ceiling, upside down, her limbs bending and twisting in impossible angles. She dropped behind Anwar. He didn't even have time to scream. There was a sharp crack, and he was gone, pulled backward into the dark. Babu grabbed my hand, screaming, "Run!" We ran toward the exit, but the door slammed shut on its own. The metal groaned, rattling as if someone was pounding it from the other side. Then came a whisper right beside my ear. "You shouldn't have stayed." I turned, and she was there, so close. I could see every line of her dead face, every crack in her skin. Her mouth was open far too wide, her jaw unhinged, and inside it wasn't a throat, it was darkness. Endless, bottomless black. She reached out with one hand, and her fingers sank into my arm like smoke turning solid. I screamed and stumbled backward, tearing free. We pushed the door again. Harder, it burst open, and we fell out into the courtyard. The cold air hit my lungs like knives. Behind us, the door banged shut so violently that the hinges tore from the frame. We didn't stop running until we reached the gate. When we turned back, the warehouse was silent again. No sound, no light, only fog. Morning came slowly. The factory manager arrived with workers. Inside the warehouse, they found Anwar's flashlight and his cap. But Anwar himself was never found. No blood, no footprints, nothing. Just one thing scrawled on the wall in black oil. "I told you not to come back." After that, the factory was permanently shut down. Within weeks, vines began growing over the walls, as if nature itself wanted to bury it. Locals say at night, if you pass that road, you'll see lights flickering inside, and a woman's shadow standing in the doorway, watching. Sometimes she laughs, sometimes she cries, but always, she whispers, "Come closer," and those who stop to listen never return. I thought escaping the factory that night meant I was free. But I was wrong. You can't run from something that doesn't live in walls or buildings. Because sometimes, it starts living inside you. After that night, I never went back. The company officially closed the factory within a month. They called it structural damage and unsafe for workers. But we all knew the real reason, because no one dared to step inside after what happened to Anwar. I tried to start fresh. I moved to a different district, took a job at a warehouse near the port, and stopped talking about the factory. I told myself it was over, just a nightmare. But nightmares end when you wake up. This one didn't. The first night in my new room, I dreamt of her. She was standing in the middle of the corridor, the same crooked shape, hair hanging over her face, whispering something I couldn't understand. Her head tilted unnaturally, as if her neck was broken, and her arms reached toward me. I woke up screaming. My bedsheet was soaked in sweat. But when I looked at the window, the glass was fogged from the inside, and someone had written 3 words with a finger. You left me. I didn't sleep after that. Over the next few weeks, strange things began happening around me. Small at first, barely noticeable. My new coworkers said they sometimes heard footsteps behind me when I walked through the hall, even though I was alone. Sometimes, the lights would flicker when I entered a room, and at night, I'd hear faint scratching from inside my wall, slow, deliberate, like nails dragging through wood. I called a rat catcher once. He checked everything. There's nothing here, he said, puzzled. No sign of rats, sir. But that same night, as I lay half awake, I heard whispering right next to my ear. It wasn't in any language I knew, but the tone, the breath, it was her. You shouldn't have left me there. The room turned ice cold. My breath came out white. The window rattled, though there was no wind. I turned on every light, but the corner of the room stayed dark, darker than shadows should be. And from that darkness, I saw her eyes. I moved again, 3 times. Each time, the same thing followed. Wherever I went, the scratching, the laughter, the cold breath near my ear at night. Sometimes, I'd wake up to find my blanket pulled halfway off, or my chair turned toward the bed, as if someone had been sitting there, watching me. One night, my neighbor knocked on my door, terrified. Brother, he said, why do you let that woman stand by your window every night? My blood froze. What woman? The one with the long hair, he whispered. She stares at the street until dawn. A few months later, I fell seriously ill. The doctors said it was exhaustion, but I knew it wasn't. I felt drained every morning, as if something had sucked the strength out of me while I slept. Then, one night, I decided to end it. I packed my bag and went back to that cursed factory, determined to face whatever was haunting me once and for all. The area had changed. The roads were overgrown, the gate rusted and half buried under vines. But the moment I stepped inside, the air grew heavy, and that familiar rotten smell hit me again. I walked through the empty yard, my flashlight trembling in my hand. Every step echoed like a memory. When I reached the warehouse door, it was already open, just like that night. And there she was, standing at the far end, her back to me, her head tilted, swaying gently from side to side, as if humming to a tune only she could hear. Her hair brushed the ground, her feet still backward. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. She spoke first. You came back. Her voice was soft, almost kind, but it felt like knives slipping into my skin. I just wanted to stop, I whispered. She turned slowly, her face visible now, the same torn smile, the hollow eyes, and that endless darkness inside her mouth. Then stay. The lights flickered and the ground beneath me shook. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. The room filled with whispers, dozens of them, male and female, crying, laughing, calling my name. From the ceiling, from the walls, from inside the floorboards, hands began to emerge. Pale, rotting hands clawing their way toward me. I screamed, swinging my flashlight wildly, but it went out. Then everything went dark. They found me the next morning, beside the factory gate, unconscious, with deep scratches all over my arms. The doctors said it was trauma. They said I had been delirious, hallucinating. But I know what I saw, and I know I didn't escape alone. Because when they cleaned the factory again, they found something new on the wall. A fresh handprint, smaller than mine, pressed deep into the concrete. And next to it, written in black oil, "He stayed with me. That was 40 years ago. I'm old now. I don't sleep much. The doctors say my mind plays tricks on me. But some nights, when I wake suddenly and look toward the window, I see her again, standing there, smiling, waiting. Her voice is softer now, almost gentle. Come closer. And every time, she's a little nearer than before." The end. Did you enjoy the story? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Horror Dream. Want more stories like this? Subscribe to The Horror Dream, and we'll bring you more darkness, just for you. If you enjoy a little chill down your spine, stick around, like, share, and hit that subscribe button, right here on The Horror Dream. Your support keeps us going, so stay with us. Subscribe to The Horror Dream for more spine-tingling tales.